Hey everyone, I'm out here in the garage and what we're going to be doing today is replacing the transmission mounts on the 2004 Honda Pilot. So stay tuned. So if you're new to the channel, I just want to welcome you here and hopefully you'll consider subscribing if you like what you see. Also, check out Car Apprentice on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. I post lots of pictures and videos on those platforms before I post anything on YouTube. And occasionally I'll post things on those platforms I don't post on YouTube. Also, check out the website at carapprentice.com. And don't forget to hit the like button if you like this video. And also see the video's description for links to some of the products used in this video. So what we're going to be doing today is replacing the transmission mounts on the 2004 Honda Pilot. So this is kind of a continuation of the saga with the clunking and the popping noise and the wandering issue, all that stuff that I went through with the steering rack. So we have not resolved the popping noise, which is what we're going to try to get done today. So you'll also see later on in the video that I address a second issue that hopefully will resolve this once and for all. So let's get into it. Here's some footage of the clunking noise that progressively got worse. I lifted the mounts with a pry bar to check them. The front mount seemed to lack firmness and there was evidence of cracking. The rear mount also showed some cracks. I placed a block of wood on my jack's pad, then I jacked up the transmission to see if the mounts would stretch and show the defects more prominently. There's a mount with the engine jacked up a little bit. You can see there's some separation. So I'm going to remove this mount and probably remove the other one and take a look at them. So I need to keep the jack under the transfer case to support the engine and transmission. To remove the front mount, there are two 14mm bolts and two 14mm nuts holding it in place. We're going to remove the two nuts first. $14mm swivel and an extension, and I'm just going to break it loose with a ratchet. So I'm going after the bolt way back here. So I have a longer ratchet with a 3/8 adapter for a little leverage. I think that did it. There it is, finally, right there. That's a tough one. Alright, so I'm going to jack up the transmission a little bit more and see if I can get the mount to slide out this way. There's those two studs under there to worry about too, of course. There we go. There it is. So we'll take a closer look at it. I'm going to lower the transmission to take some of the stress off the other mounts while I'm looking at this one. Alright, so here's the one we just pulled out. A lot of twisting going on there. You see the stress cracks right there too, all along the side of it. So I'm going to replace this regardless. Hopefully this will fix our issue, but if not, had to be done anyway. This is the new one. Not nearly as much twist. And not nearly as much flexing that way. Okay, so before I put the new front mount in, I'm going to take this one out too. Then I'll put both in at the same time and put their bolts in and all that. So we're going to do that next. All right, so 14 millimeters. All right, so I'm going after these two 14s. I got that one loose. I'm going to go after the other one on the other side. All right, I'm going to jack the transmission up a little bit. There's that one. Take a little more. There we go. All right, so here is the second transmission mount. You can see this one is pretty bad. Split right there. It's got cracks all the way through it. Very old, it looks like. Twists. That's pretty bad. See all the stress cracks there. So, in comparison, here's the new one. Still twists a little bit, but it doesn't have nearly as much give as the other one. Alright, so I'm going to jack up the transmission so I can get the mounts in, and then I'll put the bolts in and nuts in simultaneously, hopefully. See how it works out. Alright, so I'm going to start with the front one. There we go. You see the transmission is a little bit high. That's fine for now. We'll drop it down after we get the other mount in back there so that the holes line up. Slide this in. There we go. Alright, so we're going to put the 14 millimeter nuts on underneath here for this mount. Hold that in place. Okay. Yeah, I would definitely recommend cleaning off the nuts and the bolts because there's a lot of debris and dirt that gets under here. You definitely don't want to cross thread anything. So I would definitely clean them off and maybe even chase the threads too. Yeah, it went on a lot easier after I chased the threads. Okay, so now we're on to these two. Make sure I got the studs going through there. Seems like that's right. Oh, there it goes. Okay, it's on. I'll loosen it again. Okay. That's not lined up back here. So lift it again and shift this. Yep, it's a little off. Let's either move it left and right. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to drop this just a little bit and then I can start some bolts in. That's good right there. Alright, so off camera I got the bolts started back here. Okay, so 14 millimeter. Okay, and the one back there is going to be tougher. Back that out just a little bit. Alright, so we've got all of our bolts and nuts in place. It's just a matter of tightening them all down now. Make sure this is actually making contact here. We can lower this just a little bit. I think that's okay. Okay, so I'm going to tighten the upper bolts to 28 foot-pounds, and then I'm going to lower the jack and tighten the lower nuts to 28 foot-pounds. That's tight. Got that one out of the way. That was the one I was dreading doing. That's done. Alright, so I'm not sure how well you can see these two bolts, but getting anything on there to tighten those is going to be very difficult, so I'm just going to do those by hand and just kind of cinch them up that way. You could try something like this, like a crow's foot, if you can get it in there. I'm not going to waste my time with that though. That's pretty good right there, I think. And the one on this side. That's good there. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to lower the jack down the rest of the way, and then we'll get these nuts down here. Alright, so we're going to go after these two here. 14 millimeters, 28 foot-pounds. Alright, and these last two here, 14 millimeters, 28 foot-pounds. There we go. The Pilot drove great on a test drive, then the steering started wandering again a few hours later. The lower control arm bolt I tightened in the steering rack replacement video was loose again, but I didn't notice any damage to the bushing. I removed the bolt, then I applied some Permatex orange thread locker to the welded nuts threads. Orange thread locker supposedly has a lot of the characteristics of red thread locker, but it doesn't require heat to remove the fastener. I then jacked up the suspension to take the weight off the jack stands and retighten the bolt to 69 foot-pounds. After a few days of driving, the car seems to finally be back to normal. Alright, so there you have it. There's a 2004 Honda Pilot transmission mount replacement. And as you saw, we also had an issue with that lower control arm bolt once again. So I have driven the car for about 2 or 3 days after I put the Loctite on the threads of that welded nut, and I haven't had any issues since then. So hopefully this information was helpful, and thanks for watching.